Welcome to December School of Life, and I don't know how you're doing, but I'm just happy to be here. And it was really nice for me to think that this is our last one in 2016 because 2016 sucks. So if you'd like, what's that? Yeah. If you'd like to join me in a salute to 2016, please do. There are some good things, but right, man, somewhere in the middle of the year it just went bam down. So, what? The Cubs won. Yeah, that was one of the great things.
And then
the Cubs
right
won.
after that, it started to go down.
Oh, it was going down before that. Believe me. Yeah. So. So today, the topic is how to live with uncertainty, I guess, right? Is that what it was? And it's times like this when I really wish that I was a regular person, like a regular teacher, a regular kind of speaker, because then I could have a really put together presentation for you with movie clips and with, points and with organization and with even an outline. That would be nice. But the truth is this. I started School of Life because I felt overloaded with all the things that I learned that I was trying to teach to people one-on-one, and that it just wasn't getting out fast enough or far enough, So it was really fun, especially that first year, to just finally get all of those things organized and just go bleh, spit them all out. And the first few times it was like that, but then after a while, I sort of started to realize that what I really loved about School of Life and what really made it work, hopefully work for you guys, but it really worked for me, is that it was a bit of a, for me, it was like a conversation in progress, because I'm really not that good at just storing up information, organizing it, and articulating it in a way that we're used to. And I really do a lot better when there's some kind of dialogue or some kind of stimulation for what comes out, and I do better when it's kind of more extemporaneous. And so that was okay. That was okay for the first year, two. But then last year, and especially into this year, I ran out of my whole reservoir, or what I thought was my reservoir, and started to have these experiences where I was showing up and creating it, in a sense, on the fly, from not just from stuff that I had accumulated and stored up, but stuff that was really moving through me at the time. And so I got closer and closer right to the edge of where I'm actually living. And and anyway, so while in theory I think that's great, I really do love that kind of live action conversation and co-creation in the moment. I think that's a thing now. I think it's really I want you to look for that happening in our world now as I don't even know what to call it besides a thing. But I think it has the kind of dialogue, the kind of action that we have is really powerful in its rawness, kind of in its vulnerability. And that was fine until about a month ago. And I just hate this now because I'm putting my money where my mouth is. So I'm going to say this to you and to the people that are listening. If you be kind to me, okay? Because everything I'm going to tell you is going to go right through my personal experience and right through my life. So I don't do it because I think I'm a better person than anybody, and you should follow my lead or my guidance, or that I have more to say, or that what I suffer or what I go through is more important than anybody else's, or it's even significant. But it is the only way I know how to talk, so get over it, I guess. But I ask you to be kind And if you're listening and on the recording and you don't know me, I ask you also to be kind. But if you can't be kind, I'm just going to say fuck you, because this is it. This is how we do it. And it's not. And I have this sense that it's. I have this sense that it's really tied into what I'm going to say today. So it's not just the message, but it's the medium too. And going into the future, look at the medium and look at the message. And sometimes those two things coincide. So I hope maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it just makes me feel better to say that. Okay, so as I was thinking about what you guys need to know today, I get inspired usually when Kathy sends me the email and says, hey, what's your topic? Usually there's this little moment of flash. I get a little bit inspired and I come up with a topic. And then after that, sometimes it develops and sometimes I just get lost. So this time it was the same. Had this topic, how to live with uncertainty, and I had a couple ideas, and I thought, okay, good, this will be good. I can teach those people something. And then I just freaking fell apart. So in a really good way. So last time we talked about the shock that many of us were feeling after the election, and we're not alone, but it seemed strange to me, the depth and the power of the shock that I felt, and I guess sadness was there, but I wouldn't let myself feel sad. I was mostly in shock. So when I showed up last time, I talked a lot about trauma, like especially really old, stinky, ancient trauma that lives in most of us, and not like usually big trauma, but kind of the core of the things that made us human beings in our childhood. A lot of those things were identifiable and bad, and we've had to recover from them, but a lot of them just weren't. They were just the consequences of just growing up in a less than perfect environment. And that had gotten really clear to me because Ted and I had been at a conference about trauma, and he spent most of the time talking about like pre-verbal, or the kind of trauma, mini traumas that babies feel sometimes, and that sort of lie right into they just like crawl right into your nervous system and into your bones, so that it becomes a part of you. But then as you're a grown-up, I think that those kind of early experiences that we can't even put our fingers on affects us in the way we deal with our life and what's coming at us. So stuff will come at us, and then we just react in ways that don't make sense to us, or that impair us, or that expose us and make us feel super vulnerable and like we don't understand ourselves, right? So that's a lot of what we talked about. And I was right in the middle of that. So there's a lot of people who weren't here last time, so I'm kind of doing a little review. I talked about what happens in the nervous system when a trauma hits, and you can have a fight response, you can have a flight response. These are natural, normal responses to threat. Or you can have a vagal response, which is basically a collapse response, where we call that the freeze response. And that was what a lot of that conference was about, was dealing with that freeze response. And when you're in freeze, the problem is that you kind of collapse, and then most mammals will come out of collapse, like it's a natural thing. But mammals, when they go into that sort of collapse, that freeze response, when the danger passes, then they get up and go about their lives. But human beings sometimes don't, partly because we have a mind that gets in the way. And so we freeze, and then we're not so good at surviving, and we're still vulnerable, so we kind of need someone to come around us and help us reattach or reconnect or whatever. And for the most part we do, but underneath that kind of collapse response, it stays with us. Not all of us, but some of us, and for sure me. So any of that sound too hard to just sit with right now? That's just a background. Okay. So I was telling you some of my response, but I because that first 24 hours after the election, I kind of went into shock a little bit, and I had a part of my brain that was functioning, so I was going through seeing clients, blah blah blah, but it was bad the first 24 hours, and then the next day I kind of kicked into fight response, and in the way that I do, it's just very verbal, so I just kind of was like, rah! And was composing all these brilliant posts on Facebook. But I felt this energy, this fight energy come up that's not normal for me. And I told you I even got a phone call from my little brother saying, I've noticed you seem, and this is only seeing this on Facebook, I've noticed you seem really upset and mad. And that's not like you. And I'm like, yeah, it's not like me. So that was fight. And then the next day I was exhausted. And then the day after that, it seems like I was here and still very much in fight mode. So flight is not possible, although I have thought about moving to Canada, but it's cold there. So anyway, just kind of, I've been spending the last few weeks just observing what's been happening inside me and hope that some of these things are useful to you too. So after I got out of those two modes, I wandered around, I guess, inside trying to figure out how to be okay. Like I had lost a deep sense of okayness. I'm talking about like if this is the kind of the sum of my functioning in the world, I'm talking about like the bottom 10, 15%. I'm not talking about being completely useless. But at the core, where I try to check in a lot, I was very, very disturbed. And I couldn't really talk myself out of it. But I kept thinking, I don't know how to be okay now. I don't know how to be okay now. I've lost my okayness was kind of how it felt. Although, of course, I was still okay and I was still functioning. There's a really deep disturbance. And that disturbance, I guess, came partly because it felt like the ground shifted. It felt like in the communities that I belong to and in the country that I live in, the rules shifted somehow and a new dynamic kind of came in, and it was really frightening. It was really scary. I think also part of what happened was that some forces that had been sort of bubbling under the surface in our collective culture, and were underground because it wasn't nice and it wasn't polite. What happened was it just geysered up, which often happens with shadow forces. We keep them out, we keep them down individually and collectively. And sometimes you just can't keep pushing it down. And to oversimplify a lot of one of the aspects of what just happened in our culture is that those forces were being legislated against, were being kind of pushed down, pushed away, and that an icon, an archetype rose up and like galvanized that kind of energy. We've talked about archetypes in here before, and it's kind of weird and woo-woo, but if you observe it, you can kind of see how it works. So in the history of the world, there have been similar movements like this, where different forces are happening in a culture, and then all of a sudden somebody rises up, and it galvanizes like a spirit or an essence of a quality that's in a people group. Does that make sense? So I think what happened in the last year was that this icon rose up and resonated. It helped people who saw him. It started resonating, validating and resonating with some shadow stuff. And it just, like, it was just this call to rise up, we've been pushed down too long, enough of this political correctness or whatever. And so to have that unleashed was scary, watching it as every step, happened. But then when it won, freaked me right out. I don't know about you guys, but scared the daylights out of me, and I just went down. And so that's a weird thing to tangle with, it's a weird thing to try to relate to, because in a sense it's kind of ambiguous. You can say it's terrible, you can feel it, you can identify it, but what connection does it have with me? What change needs to happen in my own life? Or is there any change that needs to happen in my own life? It's hard to put your fingers on, because most of us here are not the oppressed minority. We're not the ones that are wondering if we're going to get to live in this country anymore. We're not the ones that are worrying about whether we will have the right to have health care or not. There are people who are literally threatened, perhaps, but actually nothing has happened yet, except for these breakout sort of nasty stuff that's been going on in lots of places. So as I'm sitting with myself and I'm like, I need to figure out a way to be okay. And it called up all of these other voices, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Nothing is wrong with you. So, just get up and do your stupid job. And so I was just putting one foot in front of the other, and I was trying to remember all the things that help me function, which is be in the present, do your job, show up, do the thing, what other choice you have. But down here, I was really, really disturbed. And after a couple of weeks, I started to identify what had slipped in and why I lost my center. And that's because shame came in. Just a whole layer of shame came in. And it wasn't overt kind of shame that I've dealt with in the past, because I've turned that volume down. So a lot of the voices you sometimes hear when you get into a shame spiral, like, you're so stupid, or what the, those kind of voices. I don't hear that so clearly anymore, but it kind of called up the shame that's in my bones, this sort of really low level, icky, achy kind of shame. And it cut me off from myself in the way that shame does. And I realized that as I started listening to some of the things that I was saying to myself, really low level, it was the voice that was questioning everything that I do. So, like, while you've been helping people get in touch with their inner child, the world has been going to hell. And while you've been dealing with your delicate little feelings, people's lives have been threatened. And while you've been trying to make nice with everybody that you know, this thing was looming and you were asleep. And it was just this sense of the way I was living my life was invalid now. And the things that were important to me didn't count now. And in fact, felt to me, as I looked at them, ridiculous. And that voice inside had some help. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but what's been going around social media and some of the, different, as people are talking about the reactions, we're getting, oh, the poor little snowflakes are so hurt. Or, oh, your candidate didn't win, so get over it. Or that sneery kind of bullying voice of all kinds of stuff. But I don't need to say the words, but it was that sense of, you thought you counted, but you don't. What counts is this, and we are going to get vengeance. So that's why I was rattled so deeply, because first of all, that's an ugly message, but second of all, that's how I was raised, okay? That's how I was raised. And it's sneaky because it wasn't my parents. You know, I never had a mother or father that sneered or bullied or anything, but I had a number one enforcer in my family, and that was my brother. So, and some of you are we're from the Midwest, so my people are from like western Nebraska and western South Dakota. And so if you have some of those Midwestern roots, you know that the pride of independence and hard work and just this sense of we stand on our own 2 feet, and that kind of pride is really inherent in lots of places in the world, but that's where my people come from. And so in my family, there seemed to be this message that anything that is tender or vulnerable or creative or beautiful or fragile or even smart, thoughtful, did I say creative? May not see the light of day somehow. And this was never spoken. This was never said we're against these things. It was just anytime it popped up, it got smashed down. Now, if you have siblings, you know that this happens. So if you watch little kids, the older ones always try to just put the younger ones under their thumb. I don't really understand what this is, but it's natural. It wasn't anything unusual in my family, but it was definitely there. And I don't have any permission to talk about this with about my brother here, but that's a little part of my passive aggressive, like get you back kind of thing. I started to realize that he was the enforcer of some of these deep forces, and so if you cried, then you were a crybaby, of course. If you were chubby, like, I don't know, somebody in our family was chubby, then every day you had to be punished for being chubby. Every day. Punished by, being ridiculed and bullied and, whatever. And if you were scared of the dark, or if you were, left in the care of this person, perchance, 2 or 3 times a week, then we were sort of under the thumb of, I guess, resentful older brother, to put it in the best possible light. So pretty soon, I got the message anyway that all of those expressions, whatever is in there, better stay down, because it's not safe, right? You let it squeak out and you get slapped down, or you get ridiculed, or whatever. So this sort of collapse became, and living underground and not even seeing them myself, became sort of the fabric of the self that I was, trying to hold on to or keep in the back room or whatever, because to let that part forward meant rejection or ridicule or whatever. Does anybody resonate with that? Anybody else raised that way? It's not just my family, it's pretty much prevalent. So of course, when I'm trying to figure out how to be okay, what happened was I went back to some part of me, some circuit breaker inside, kind of went back to all the ways that I had to try to cope when I was growing up, which is to kind of fuzz out, to kind of dissociate a little bit and feel this really sort of disturbing but hard to put your finger on rattling going on in the nervous system. So when I started to see that this was shame, it was don't be. It was how dare you. It was the shame that was the message of if you're weak, if you're creative, if you're brilliant, if you're anything, you should be ashamed of that, because every time it popped up, that's what you got, right? Shame. And so just started catching that about a week ago, that, oh, this feels like shame. Oh, I think I got disconnected from myself. But then asking all the questions, like, are the things that I teach and that I live and that I work with people on, are they really valid now? Do they really count now? Does it really matter now that the world could be ending? And I think I thought, I don't know. I don't know if it does. I forgot that it did. I don't know how to integrate it here. How does it work now? And when there's no threat and we have a safe place, we create these safe places where we go, right? And this has been very, very safe. So I've been coaxing myself and everyone to think about your really deep feelings and to give them a voice and listen to the deep forces that are happening, and that your soul is really, it was the most vulnerable part of you, but it's really the strongest part of you, and all these things that for the last 4 years, suddenly we're like, really? So that left me not so great. So thankfully, I went to my acupuncture appointment on, this was just Wednesday. And by then I'd been sort of coping okay and doing my job and feeling all right. And I was driving down there thinking, I think I'm okay. I'm not sure what I'm going to ask for, but I think I'm, resilient, doing all right. Walk into the room, sit down. She's like, asks me, so how are you? And I just want to cry. And I realized anytime I got in really safe places, which are few and far between, I hate to admit, I'm coping fine, but underneath, I just want to lay down on the floor and cry. And so we talked about some things, and she asked me what I wanted, and I mostly just wanted to say, well, I just want to feel better, okay? But she asked me a couple questions. One was, well, what kind of belief system do you have these days? And
what kind of what?
Belief system? What kind of like spiritual belief system do you have? And I just kind of, I don't know. It was just sort of like, well, I tore it apart and I don't really know what I believe anymore. And I don't, so it felt like she was trying to help me find something to anchor myself in. And I was like, I don't know. And then she said, okay, well, and as I was trying to talk about it, I said, well, I think I believe in, and I was really fumbling around. I think I believe in a being of goodness and I just threw everything into the thing of goodness. And she said, yeah, I like to think of it in terms of light and darkness, and that the light is there, and the light's just, I don't know what she said, but suddenly it came to me. Yeah, but I want to win. I want to win. And I think that was one of the things that really, really rose up in me, that I don't like feeling weak. As much as I try to affirm vulnerability, I don't like it. And I freaking want to win. I want a win. I want to be on the winning team, or I want to win. And that's when she said, well, their light prevails and the goodness. And I'm like, yeah, it prevails, but it doesn't win. And I want to win. So then I traced back this whole thing about winning. And if you know me, you know I'm the worst loser in the world. I am. And I try not to compete because I embarrass myself, because I hate losing. If I care about winning, then I'm in trouble, because then I just look like a complete idiot. I started, one of my friends, when we were about 12, decided she wanted to take tennis lessons. So she dragged me to tennis lessons and the tennis court. And I just was the worst. And I beat her all the time. But if I didn't do well, I just would throw a fit. And I'd throw it publicly, like right on the court. If you ever remember John, what's his name? John McEnroe. I was just like him, only I couldn't play like him, you know. But my friend would play with me every day. We'd go out and play. I would beat her all the time, but I had to not just beat her, I had to be perfect. I had to win. And if I didn't, I would get so mad at myself and so frustrated with myself and throw my racket. I'd stomp my feet. I'd swear. It was bad. Then when Ted learned to play tennis and we started playing together, he just naturally, he loves to compete. Well, that lasted about 2 months because I'd been playing tennis from age 12 to age, 19 or whatever. And when he started competing, I was just like, and that was really embarrassing. So we don't compete. And at all. And so, I didn't really play sports, but I watched sports. And so anyway, you should never see me watch a Bronco game because I can't just let it be a game. Somehow it represents something. It represents some way that I feel powerless in the world. And so if I can't transfer my identity on the sports team and they can't win for me, then it reminds me how powerless I feel and have felt. And you can imagine growing up in that family where all I could do was disappear, that frustration and that sense of powerlessness is just one of my core things. So when I thought, yeah, I really just want to win, and I'm really mad that goodness doesn't win, like the side I'm on, which I think is goodness, doesn't freaking win. It just pulls up all the rage, all the anger. And I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. So on the one hand, I am an inexhaustible font of peacefulness. What is it I said? Graciousness or harmony, peace. And on the other hand, I'm filled with anger and rage. Oh, I understand. So we get on the table, and she puts her little needles in, and then she leaves, and I just felt like, well, usually what she says when she leaves is just, go to a peaceful place or a safe place or a happy place or whatever, and just try to relax. So I'm on the table, and suddenly I just feel like I'm completely encased. And a lot of people on the acupuncture table have these incredible experiences. And this was one of those, but it felt very womb-like. It was like, I couldn't curl up like I was in the womb because I have to be flat on your back, but it felt like it just sort of encased me, and almost like I was in a hammock that would cover over the top, and I just felt like I was sort of going back and forth like that. And I thought of the womb, and it hit me that. So this is a really important thing. It's not just telling my story of my experience, but it hit me that. What is the womb, and what does it do? And it just came to me that the womb is perfectly constructed, designed to nourish and nurture and grow a human being. And when this human being is in the womb, it does nothing. It contributes nothing. It can think nothing, feel nothing. Well, it feels, but there's no intrinsic sort of thing that the fetus can offer the world. But the whole world is designed to support and to create the perfect conditions for a being to be. And then when this being is born, it's like done. That's all that matters, was that the conditions were perfect in support of this being. And it just was really powerful to me, because I think I was really tired from trying to be something for everybody else and contribute in the world in a way where grown-ups do. We offer something, we get things back, And I needed a reminder that there's some support for me, not because I am all these things, but just because I am. And so this profound experience of being, just being, kind of seeped into my bones, or maybe reconnected me with what I've always known, because we know how to be, it's in there. But I'd lost connection with it. And not just connection with the experience, but with the power of it. Like the power of being was what I reconnected with. And I felt like, I just got plugged back into something that I know to be true, that I experienced to be true, and that really is my core. Because my first thought when on November the, 10th, when I woke up, was, we have to fight. We have to fight. I got in the fight, right? There's these forces coming at us this way. We need to, stand up and fight this way. And the more I kind of did that, the tireder I got and the more impotent I felt. And so now I'm going to tell you why. So wait, except I got ahead of myself. So I started feeling more impotent and more tired, and I lost my center. And so when I got plugged back into my center, some things became clear to me, and this is what I want to share with you now. Anybody lost? Anybody need to say anything? Okay. So one of the, I feel like we should take a break. Then my thinking came back online, and I started to realize something that I've already known. So we're going to do a little review. Every time I talk about this, I do a little review because sometimes it's hard to understand and I don't give you very much information. So in the model that I am trained in and that I think in and that I've worked in, there are, and it's based on sort of Jungian ideas, but I've used the concept of the 4 quadrants of the human being. Does this sound familiar to you guys? And so the being quadrant, this has to do with 4 functions. So the being quadrant we call the sovereign. And the reason we call it the sovereign is because the sovereign or the king or the queen sort of embodies the energy or the qualities of being. Okay, so Jung used archetypes to kind of articulate some things that are hard to just say, but you can get in a picture and a character. And so the sovereign represents the function of being. Then on the other end of the spectrum, or the other end of this, can't talk and write. The other end of the pole here, not the opposite, but maybe dialectic, or on the other end of the pole, is the doing function. And the archetype that represents the doing is the warrior, which is also in literature, and that one thing that we kind of understand. Across this way, and this is very much intentionally north, south, east, west for lots of reasons. Over here is the thinking function. And the archetype for the thinker is the sorcerer or the magician in the literature and in ancient thinking. Over here, on the other pole from that, be consistent. Is the feeling function, and the archetype for that is the lover. Think Romeo, Juliet, and before. So, as a human being, what makes up the personality and the core of the person are the functions of being, doing, feeling, and thinking. And things like the Myers-Briggs personality inventory are based on these 4 functions. So we can think about them in balance and blah, blah, blah. And so my head's always sort of there. So when I had this experience of being, of course, it made me think of this quadrant, the sovereign quadrant, the king and queen quadrant. And what I know about the sovereign, maybe you guys can help me. This will be a little bit of review. I kind of want to not test you, but see if you remember what you know about the sovereign from if you've been here a while. What qualities does the sovereign represent? What do you remember?
Kind of ruling over all the feelings of, in other words, it kind of takes in everything and kind of holds it together.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Kind of takes in everything, surveys everything, rules everything, and holds it. That's a great way. That's very succinct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Phew. Sage.
Decides ultimately for what the lover, the warrior, the thinker do.
Yeah. So the sovereign rules, right? Makes decisions. I'm the decider. Does that make sense? Does that ring a bell? Rules, holds, sees the big picture, and ultimately rules from the power of their being. Now, historically, that's not always true. You know, you have despots and you have jerks and you have inadequate people who rise to the position of king or queen. But the human quality that the sovereign represents is this sense of wholeness and this sense of depth of character. And by the force, kind of the force of the power or the force of your being or your character, it gives you the authority and the right to rule. So think about leadership. Think about if you've ever been been a leader or been in the company of a leader who holds a lot of sovereign, who has a sense of goodness and a sense of wholeness and adequacy and competency and authority, how that feels. It feels safe, you feel secure, and you feel like it's going to be okay. Think mother, father. Think, that encompassing, holding, wise being. This is the sovereign. So inside of us is this part. There is this inside of all of us. There's this energy inside of all of us. And we have a hard time with it. We don't really recognize it. We don't access it very easily, and we don't really get the power of it because we're normally living on this axis, the lover magician axis, right? So we feel things, we think things. We think things, it makes us feel things. We feel things, then we figure out what our thinking was. We interact, we come up with ideas, we connect, we have feelings, and this encompasses most of our life, the magician lover axis. And when we're safe, like when we're not threatened, it's kind of okay to be here. You can get over dramatic in the lover quadrant, so whenever big drama is happening, it's usually because lover is unhealthy and over functioning and not grounded in any way. And if you're in magician is all about thinking, of course, but it encompasses, it's driven by the need to control things. It responds to fear, and it gets super overactive. Most of what we've been talking about in School of Life for 3 years has been try to understand that as a society we are like steeped in the magician mostly, and that I want to try to keep it as simple as I can. It's not quite that simple, but when we get into trouble, when I got into trouble and when I had to do a lot of recovery work, it had to do with making sure my magician wasn't making me sick. And we live in our society in this part of the 21st century with the idea that our knowledge will save us, our brains will help us. And so we develop our whole being based on the idea that if we don't know something, if we feel uncertain, then we should figure it out, right? Every time you're feeling something, I don't know about you, I shouldn't say you, but my go-to is, I got to figure this out. I got to crack the code. I got to understand this. I got to analyze this. I got to figure, anytime you're feeling something and then your first response is, I got to figure this out, you're over here. And this has to do with control and fear and making stuff happen and, whatever. So, Sage.
I don't want to bust you up halfway through. I'm worried about having shadow aspects of each pole
Yes.
show up without distinguishing them, because magician has some lovely life-generative
Yes.
qualities too. I just wanted to kind of request that you
Okay.
make the
I'll do
shadow
that.
aspects
No
clear.
worries, and it's important. So it's not like this is good, the rest are bad, or it's that with each energy, there are light and dark qualities, if you want to put it that way. There's so in the sovereign we have the benevolent and the generous and the ability to bless and hold and nourish, but we also have the tyrant, the also controller, the micromanager, that kind of, that too much or dark energy could be hovering, yep. But it's more like this dominant, if you're feeling dominated, or if you're feeling, if you get that from somebody, that's kind of the shadow side of the sovereign. You can, if you have weak sovereign, then you have no core, no sense of purpose, no sense of being. So I'm kind of focusing on the positive here, but there is a dark side. It's not like these are good and that's bad. So with the magician, we have control, fear. It can be overactive, it can be cannibalistic, it can be neurotic, it can be there's all kinds of stuff comes from there, like from the dark magician, like manipulation and gaslighting and all these kinds of trick you sort of things comes from the dark magician. The positive side or the light side of the magician is brilliance, creativity, understanding. Well, sovereign magician, I think, is wisdom. Wisdom is deeper than knowledge, but pure magician is like, we got to fix this. And innovation and a lot of entrepreneurial stuff comes from the magician and figuring stuff out. I'm in my magician right now, so teaching and giving. Except now I lost my brain, so it's hard to be a good magician when you can't find your words. So the light side of magician, of course, is there. Okay, now with the lover, you have overactive lovers, just my feelings are everything, oh my God. The needy, clingy is the dark lover, the needy, clingy, can't exist without other people around me. Could be codependent. Yeah, I haven't thought about that yet. The indulgent, so like you can see it when you're in parenting sometimes, when you overindulge a child and believe their feelings and allow their feelings to rule rather than instruct them on what's really real. When you think about a toddler, they can be all feeling, and so if something happens, then they have a meltdown because to them, whatever it is they feel is the end of the world. And so if you act like it is the end of the world, then you're not helping them. You know what I'm saying? So inside of us, we have a kind of a dark lover, the manipulative person in relationship, the guilt tripping, that kind of stuff to cling to or cleave to. That's the dark lover. But of course, the lightness of the lovers is the depth of emotion, the richness of feeling, the intensity and the beauty of relating and connectedness. Okay?
Where would you put empathy?
Empathy is in the lover quadrant, because you are literally resonating in an emotional way in the limbic part of your brain with what someone else is experiencing. So that empathy is probably the highest quality of the lover. Okay, does that make sense? So where am I going now? I did write some things down, which is kind of amazing. We just need to make sure, because we're... Okay. Well, basically, I realized as I was lying in the table that the thing that I got disconnected from in this thing that happened was I got disconnected from my sovereign, from this sense of being. And I guess I wanted to emphasize that being is a kind of power. And we don't really believe that. We don't really notice that because we're a magician warrior or magician lover, usually kind of society. And so being, what does being do? Nothing. What does being feel? I don't know, whole. What does being, being, we're not used to considering that as a power, and that's how I got disconnected, because it seemed like a powerful force sort of whipped through, disconnected me, brought in shame and some of my deeper kinds of things. And so I reconnected with this sense of the power just of being. So this is the important thing for us. I want to try to help you get to a place where you can remember the power of being, because people like us, we're not likely to win. We're not likely to win this thing that's happening. Okay, so there are, post-election, I think a lot of things have shifted. And there are people who are going to be called to fight. There are going to be people who are going to be able to compete and able to articulate and able to push back on the plane of the conflict that's happening. But for me, I know whenever I try to do that, whenever I think that I can screw up enough might to enter the conflict on the plane that it's being fought, I get really tired and defeated. And so for me, and maybe for a lot of you too, we need to know that there is another thing, there's another way, and that it's probably not going to involve winning in the way that we want. But it has to do with some of the most ancient and the most powerful forces in humanity. So this all has to do with uncertainty in that, what do we do now? How do we live? And so now that I've laid the groundwork for it's through the thing of being, I want to help you bring it home. Okay?
That's real quick. Can I
Yeah.
ask? One thing that I had in my head in the being quadrant is providence and flow.
Uh-huh.
Are those there?
I think so. Provenance and flow in the sovereign quadrant. Yeah, I think so.
Because there's something that has to be different than doing in
Mhm.
that being held, but it still is
There still is action. Yeah.
that flow.
Yeah. You're still doing something. Yeah, or there is still some sort of
Substance. that
substance.
flows.
That's a substance that flows. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so back to the question, how do you be in uncertain times and with uncertainty? And the thing we most first want to do in uncertainty is to get certain again, right? And so most of our lives exist on being out of balance and then grabbing hold of something to make you feel certain again, right? Or am I alone here? So, and that's what the magician is for. You know, it's to help you sort of ground, it's to help you understand some things and reach for something you can hold on to. But when you can't really hold on to anything, when things have really been disrupted at a deep, really deep level, you can try, and if you can find something, go ahead. But what we do all the time is once we feel uncertain, it's like our little roots, you know, get pulled up or the ground collapses out from under us. And so we like run around looking for something else to sink our roots into. And for a lot of us, it's different things. So some of us sink our roots into disappearing. Some of us sink our roots into taking action, or certain theories or certain theologies or certain kinds of things that help us feel not so uncertain. And or we identify with a people group, or with a philosophy group, or with a system of people or thoughts. And that can be fine. It's just that for those of us who've been around here for a while, we've tried lots of different things, and it only works for a while. So when certainty is the thing that you need, you feel that you need the most, then when the ground that you're plugged into disappears, it leaves you with, what do you do now? And everything that we've been talking about for the last few years is about learning to be different with ourselves when we lose certainty. Okay? Let's do something different than run off and get our meat hooks into something so we don't have to feel uncertain. So what I want to highlight right now is, and I want you to think about and ask yourself, what's it like for you when you feel uncertain at a really deep level? When the things that made you feel secure get removed? Try to dial up that sensation or that feeling right now. And if you get it, just kind of nod your head if you remember what it feels like. But I'm wondering if, well, one of my theories is that what's needed in these times and at certain times in our life is a different relationship with uncertainty. And I keep quoting over and over again, we need to develop a relationship with the unknown. I got that from David White. Because our soul keeps pulling us into more growth and more growth. And to do that, our journey is from one certainty to that falling apart, to finding another certainty, and eventually that falling apart, to finding another certainty, and then that falling apart. And what if we kind of quit finding another certainty altogether and just learned how to be different in uncertainty, to develop a relationship with that scary monster instead of run away from it, or instead of trying to escape it or fight it or desperately try to grab on to something else, because this is what the magician does. It goes on one to the next, to the next, to the next. And if you're younger than me, then you may not be ready yet to go, I'm not, hey, fine, I'm going to just sink myself into this idea now, or that idea, or this people group, or that people group. But I'm too old for that now. Like, I've been through a few of those, you know, and I realized that once I get my hooks into it, I can't necessarily rest because they fall apart. They're temporary at best. So wouldn't it be great to develop a relationship with ourselves when things shift so that we're not desperate, panicky, checking out, trying to run away from that icky feeling of being uncertain and ungrounded. Okay? So, so here's the 5-step, easy 5-step way to reconnect with your sovereign. Which, of course, goes against everything I believe in. But there are some things that you can do to kind of help yourself. The first thing that I guess I'll just use myself, that I did, was to remember that there's more to me than I think. And to kind of step back, reconnect with this sense of being, and get back to the sovereign. Okay? So, 1, remember the sovereign. Because remembering is half the deal. Sometimes all you have to do is go, oh, well, wait, hold on, I can step back. Hold on, I'm more than this. Hold on, I'm caught in fear. I'm stuck in a story. And so to remember that there's more here and I can shift that energy really helps. So remember that. The second thing that you can do is connect with it. And this is the tricky part, because we don't usually have a lot of ways to do that. Falling out of the sovereign is the easiest thing to do. And finding ways beyond realizing that that's what you're doing, finding ways to connect with it, it's a little bit tricky. But here's one thing that you can do that is really fast and easy, and I want you to try it with me. So I want you to, where you're sitting, first uncross your legs. And then you can close your eyes if you want or not. But I want you to imagine that you are a king or a queen. How would you be sitting? And it's important because the king and the queen sits or stands, but mostly sits on a freaking throne, right? The throne is the seat of their authority. And so when we don't remember what that feels like, the first thing that you can do is to sit in a way with your back straight and your legs, your feet on the floor, and your head sort of not down or to the side, or your spine is straight, your head, your eyes are forward, and there's a line that's going from the top of your head down to the bottom of your tailbone. And when you get in that position, your body is remembering what it feels like to take authority, to be in the seat of your being. And you can trick yourself into getting back into sovereign by, first of all, just assuming the body disposition, and then taking a deep breath and going to your center. Now, we've done this a lot of times. Basically, here's what I do. I close my eyes, I take a breath, and as I exhale, I think of myself moving out of my head, which is usually where I am all the time, and then just sort of descending on the elevator a little bit. It takes me usually about 3 deep breaths to move down into the center of my body, which is really down here by my belly button. And when I can move my consciousness down to, like my attention, down to the center of my body, it shifts my physiology, it shifts my nervous system into a posture that reminds me that there's something else here, Get what I'm saying? So instead of saying, oh, wait, I have to go, how do I get to the sovereign? Let me think. I'm going to read a book about the sovereign, and then I'm going to maybe that's what we normally do. But you can get yourself into the body disposition of sitting in that seat. So once you get to your center, then the next thing you can do is to get grounded. And so to get grounded, you can imagine yourself like taking your I don't know, that part of you deep in your belly, and going down through your legs, down through the bottom of your feet, and sinking yourself down into the earth. So the sense of rootedness and groundedness, it helps to imagine that so that it tricks your brain into getting into that energy space. Does that make sense? This is not hocus pocus anything. This is just teaching the brain to access a part of it that it knows. Okay? So try it. Take another breath, and then just imagine that as you exhale, you've got some part of you that's going down through your knees, down through your ankles, the bottoms of your feet, and just rooting itself, then creating these roots that ground you into the earth. And so think of how that must feel when you're not blown about now, when you're anchored and you're rooted. And that sort of accesses the part of your brain and the part of your soul that really does know your uniqueness and your value and your purpose. You may not know your purpose, but your bones know your purpose. Like your soul knows your purpose. It maybe hasn't told your head yet, but it knows. There's a part of you that knows. And when you get there, then you can see from there. And when you get there, then all the other functions, your mind, your magician, your feelings, and your doing can then become in service to the wisest part of you. So I'm not fooling around here. This really works. It really helps. And if we're going to keep our balance, and if we're going to grow ourselves and contribute into the world, we have to be playing on a different playing field. So these energies that are happening now up here they feel so powerful and they're so dramatic, but they really are not where true power lies. And when we can get into sovereign, then we can shift how we are in the world, and then that can inform us of how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to speak, who we're supposed to be connected to, and how we're supposed to feel. So that's so step number 2, connect with your body, just like we did, and get into the body disposition of the sovereign. The other ones have body dispositions too, but we're not going to talk about those today. So the next step then is to come to face with your uncertainty, with your insecurity, with your fear, whatever it is, to acknowledge it, okay? And what should I call that? So face it maybe, or let it, feel it, or become aware of this feeling of uncertainty. Yeah, recognize it. So this is you sitting in your throne and you're like, okay, I got grounded and now I've been feeling really uncertain or afraid. I don't know what's going to happen, and I can't know what's going to happen. So I have to face it. And then, because some of us run from it, we either run from it or we try to overcome it somehow, but to just face it and accept it is important piece. And let yourself feel what it feels like to be uncertain. not the screaming story of it. What's going to happen? Oh my God, I'm going to die of cancer. I'm going to get, blah, blah, blah. People are going to get deported. We're going to be, I don't know, we're going to lose my health care. Those are the stories of uncertainty. But the feeling, the sensation in your body, feel that and become aware of it is all. Okay, then the next thing, golly, the next thing is to put your hand on your heart. And I am not fooling around. Because this is where you connect with yourself. Part of the reason we freak out is we don't have a relationship with ourselves. We don't know how to be present with ourselves. We don't know how to get our sovereign in connection to the other parts. And this is another really quick body trick that when you put your hand over your heart, it triggers your connection center, your attachment center. And it just activates the part of your brain that knows what comfort is, that knows what security feels like, that knows what love feels like, and nourishment and nurturing feels like. And you have to have that, or you're going to feel like a shrieking empty shell. So when you put your hand on your heart, on the throne, then you're activating some really good parts of yourself. And when you do that, I want you to then think of uncertainty is a kind of suffering. And so when you put your hand on your heart, the first thing that I think will help you is to reach out with your imagination to those in the world who are truly, truly suffering. Like, we could be suffering from our own neurosis, right? We could be suffering and nothing's really wrong, but it's still suffering and we still need to know how to be with it. And so when we've got our hand on our heart, the first thing that's going to help you is to remember all the people, some you know, some you don't know, who are legitimately, for reals, really, and have been for centuries suffering. So maybe you know someone who's sick or who has a debilitating illness. Maybe you know someone who's in poverty or fear. Maybe you know someone who's lost someone or tragedy has happened in their family. Or maybe you just remember that we're scared now because we're like privileged white people and that stuff got kicked out from underneath us and we're under threat. But there are people groups who live with uncertainty and they've freaking mastered it, right? That their uncertainty and their real danger has galvanized something in them that we could learn from. So when you're connecting with people that you know are actually suffering at this moment, you're honoring them, first of all. You're drawing on your compassion, but the thing that you're really doing that benefits you the most is that you're accessing their courage. You're accessing their warrior. And so what we're trying to do here is make an alliance between your sovereign and your good warrior. Because this sense of being and authority needs to have some action to it. And so when you connect with other people that are suffering through your imagination in this place, you're calling on all of the people who have suffered in all of the generations of all of the human beings that have ever lived on the earth. I sometimes scoff at this a little bit, then I remember in the Bible, in Hebrews chapter 11, where it says, what? Sorry. we're kind of not alone. We're not really alone. And the people who've suffered, they didn't win. They didn't win, but they're surrounding us somehow. I don't know how that works, but I think it's true. I kind of don't believe it, and I believe it at the same time. Sage.
I tried a little exercise from 4 to 5. We'll all listen.
Yeah.
We'll count. No. In that from that heart grounding to connecting to others who suffered, I took my other hand and I put it on my gut,
Yeah.
leaving the hand on the heart, because the gut is fear. It's also courage.
Yeah. Okay. So for the purposes of the recording, one thing that you could add to this, when you put your hand on your heart, when you're connecting with others who suffer, you can put your hand down in your gut.
Or your other hand.
Or your other hand, yeah. So 2 hands, because that's really the center of who you are, it's the center of courage. So the heart is the center of compassion, the gut is the center of courage. So you connect with other people who suffer. And then what? That'll get you a long way. And then gather some of that courage and then be with it. So I guess just breathe and be with it. When I think about the other people who suffer and who are doing it well, I'm thinking of the Dakota Pipeline people. I don't know if you know a whole lot about that story, and I don't even really know all the particulars, and some of those facts are in dispute. But a good friend of mine went there before Thanksgiving, spent 3 days there, and what she witnessed there was this kind of power. So the leaders of the resistance of the peoples that are collected there are the women. And the power of the resistance is in their spirituality. So you have this group of Native women who are praying every day. They are gathering together and they're praying. And they're not just, we're praying that this will win. They're not praying to win. They're praying to I don't know, I guess we'll have to ask them. But when I think about it, what I'm thinking is that they're rooting themselves in this long tradition of being in a powerful way. And they're the ones that make the rules. So if you come, there's certain ways you pitch your tent, there are certain things you do and don't do. They are masters of nonviolent resistance. And they are the core, the center, the authority of the movement. There's a lot of stuff that happens around the sides, but they're kind of my model here for this sovereign warrior alliance. And then you choose what you're going to do. So then out of being with it, then you do something. You decide what you're going to do. And when you're drawing courage from these people, you would not, the feeling that it brings you of courage and strength and authority, this is the sovereign warrior thing that we're not used to feeling. And then you choose, then you figure out what you're going to do. Okay, so remember the sovereign, connect with your body disposition, let the uncertainty kind of come into your body, put your hand on your heart, the other hand on your gut, connect with others who suffer, and borrow from them the accumulation of all of their resistance and suffering and strength and courage. And then be with that for a while, and then let that inform what you do. This might take you a while. You're not going to sit down and maybe you will in 5 minutes go, I know what I need to do now. But if you do this, then you're you're kind of moving into uncertain times and doing what you need to do and not getting distracted by neurosis or hysteria or avoidance or, those kinds of things. So you're basically just connecting with who you are. Okay? Now, practically, how to do some of this. I just had a couple of really funny little ways to help you with this. Can I erase this now? You got to go deep. But sometimes you just need some sentences or something, So when I was feeling kind of ashamed of everything that I do and all that I stand for and realizing, well, of course I do because that's my history, I started to realize that I don't have to do anything different. Like what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, and what helps people in adversity and in comfort. It really has some value. But I had sort of lost this sense of integrity and sureness about it. And I was thinking about this sovereign warrior connection. And so I thought, in general, what should I do? And so the first thing is to double down on all your practices. So if you've been a good student, you've been doing all your practices, then you're meditating, you're changing the channel, you're, all the things that we've learned in the last. So double down on it, like do them, but do them with a vengeance. So do art, do yoga, meditate, walk, connect, go to therapy, do all the things that you normally do. But now that things are more uncertain, add a little warrior to it. Add some intention to it, and add this one thing, defiance. Because we may not be on the front lines, but we need to stand, and we need to not buy the ridicule of and the bullying, the nuttiness that's going on. And bullies win because they get us to believe their thing, that they're cool and you're not, that they're powerful and you're weak, that they're smart and you're stupid, that their ideas are good and yours, are useless. And so the bully wins by disconnecting you from your values and from your core of who you are. And it kind of plasters over everything these stupid ideas. Like cool is good, power is good, money is good, everything else is bad. So we have to do what we do and double down on it. And the way you double down on it is you add a little bit of defiance to it. And here's how you do that. You can either grit your teeth and go, I'm going to meditate, or you can add these very useful words. If ever there was a time for strategic profanity, it is now. And I really believe this. I joke about this a lot, but I really do believe that there are certain words in the English language that convey grit and defiance when you need them. Now, they can be overused and they can be used profanely. But these are kind of sacred uses of these particular words. And I say that facetiously, but I really, really mean it. And people who are good girls and boys, we've been taught, use those words. And it's part of the way we got defeated, is because they told us to obey the rules, we obeyed the rules, then we got nothing. Disconnects us from our warrior. So, yeah.
Do you know the scene from The King's Speech where the voice therapist is trying to get the prince, the king, to be actually get over his stuttering, and he tries to get him to cuss.
Yeah.
And it's hysterical. Do you guys know?
Oh, yeah, I wish we had it right now. That scene in the King's Speech, like the climax of the whole movie. It's the longest, greatest string of swear words I've ever heard.
No, at first he's just like,
Yeah.
he can't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah, he can feel this frustration building up. And then the swear words are the vehicles for his power to move into the world. So this is what we need. We need a little bit of defiance and a little bit of power. And there are some ways that you can, help yourself do what you normally do, but refusing to be ashamed of it, basically. So, for example, I'm going to fucking meditate, damn it. I'm going to go to fucking yoga, damn it. Because I don't know about you, but I hear this love, oh, you're going to go to yoga now? Oh, really? You're going to meditate now? Fine. We're just going to empty your bank accounts. And we're going to, I hear that. So that kind of defiance, we're connecting to resistance, and we're being who we are. And so if you need a little oomph, then feel free to borrow my sacred, swear words. Yeah.
Sacred mantra.
Yeah. So I'm gonna stand in my soul, damn it. I'm gonna throw pottery, damn it. Because when I say it's coming against this unspoken, what good is freaking pottery gonna do for the world? People are losing their health care. People are, what? It's that voice that's sneering at us. But who we really are, the things we've been practicing, is the power that is the power of being, that is the power that prevails, even if we don't win. Hope.
So this is great, by the way.
Thank you.
I just want to tell you, this is just going right to my heart. I love this whole consideration. I want to go back to, I think, what was number 5 previously about connecting with the suffering of others, and talk about why that's important for me in this step where you are now. Because the fucking damn it cycle brings me face to face with my fear of being angry. And so what dissipates that for me is the connection with others, and the empathy and the sense of connecting with all that went before that has suffered. That's what unravels the anger that keeps me from getting to fucking damn it.
Yeah. That's a good. It reminds me of something that I wanted to say also. So, connecting with other people that suffer and standing with them. I've been reading all of these stories in the last month, just stories and stories and stories of people who have been being bullied or, attacked or whatever. And one I read, maybe it was just this morning or yesterday, a woman, I think she's she's a writer for some news outlet that's reputable, okay? She was down in Florida because the meeting of the new cabinet or some collection of conservative, people that are really involved in the new administration. And she was there to cover that, I think. And she wrote this story about, this just happened the other day. She was at breakfast at the hotel where they were meeting. And I don't know why I was in Florida. Sorry, I'm not good at these details. But she was eating breakfast by herself. And you read that? And there's a whole table of the mucky muck sitting there. And they were loudly boasting and laughing and congratulating each other for how it's going to be different now, and how this is going to happen, and those people aren't going to do this, and I forget all that it was, but it's this braggadocious sort of, we're in charge now, and all those people are going to be deported, and all those people are going to, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we're going to win now. Like they were just reveling in their macho energy, and they were being served by an African American woman. She was their waitress, And so they were just loudly being, talking about racist stuff and lording it over the masses, and she was just politely serving them. And so the woman who was writing the story pulled her aside, and I don't know what all she said. I'm really sorry, and thank you for your service. This must be really hard for you to hear, or whatever. And she just went, "Oh, that kind of hate never lasts." Can you remember some of the other things that she said? It burned. Yeah, yeah. We may not live to see it, but she knew that kind of boisterous, Biff Tannen sort of energy, it's blowhard, and they can do damage. They can, but it doesn't last, and it burns itself out. And this was from a woman who I'm sure has grown up with that kind of thing and figured out how to step back, how to connect with who she really is, what she really believes, what her true values are, and decides not to meet, she'd lose anyway, but she can't meet that kind of blowhard power with anything coming from the other side, because it doesn't have that quality to it. You just get run over, or you get ridiculed. This is why you have to kind of go underneath it and dig deep and remember. And so when you connect with people that have suffered, then these are things they already know. So like you were talking about, when you connect with people who are suffering right now, you need to know that they have wisdom, and they have like chops that we don't have. And to be reminded that this connection in this being gets you in touch with a real power that takes the plane of existence to a different level. It's sort of like you go underground and you let them do their shtick. And if you're called to fight there, then support people who fight there. I'm not saying nobody should, but we have legislators, we have writers, we have all kinds of people that do that. But we're kind of, at least I need to go underneath, because that's where I've always gone. And so now everything that I do, I can do as an act of defiance. So I'm connecting with my power. So when I go, I'm gonna fucking go throw some fucking pottery, damn it, it calls up this sense of defiance, and it helps me to validate that what I'm doing is important. It doesn't feel important, it doesn't look important, and they wouldn't think it's important, but it really is the only thing that's important. So do some art, get in nature, connect with people that you love, meditate, remember what you're for, and just add that little bit of warrior to your sovereign. And do it knowing that you're connected with everything that only matters and will last when all of that has burned itself out or destroyed the world, either one. So,
I was just going to say, I think also when we connect with those that are suffering, however we do that, or those that have suffered, I think it gives us an awareness in some ways of our white privilege. Like, I was really struck by, it was a Saturday Night Live skit about this election party, but it was Chris Rock and what's that other guy's name?
yeah, Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, and they were, this group of white people are like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And they look at each other like, really? And it was, for some reason, that really struck me, like, because it feels like
And you thought you could get away quietly.
someone who's really suffered this. This is not the worst thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There are people in the world who have figured out how to live with uncertainty and danger. And we just need a little practice is all.
And I think the other is thinking back through history and thousands of years, and truly less than 65 years, that people all over the world were doing their acts of defiance in very soft, subtle ways. And they were living their life, but they had to fight against what was going on, and they did.
Yeah.
And definitely there were different levels of that.
Yeah. And forget about winning.
You win inside of you.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing in terms of this. Once you feel that again inside, you've won that. That's all that's
Yeah.
necessary.
Sage?
Kind of weird to have to join the rest of history.
I know. I
We could-
Like they're sitting there going, well, it's about time you joined us, you know.
Number two, one way to get in that sovereign space, and it's like a brain exercise. I don't know if you've ever like intentionally been aware of your peripheral vision. You can do that, you know, but to look forward and then broaden your vision so that you're aware of your peripheral vision is a great way to get into that sovereign space too. And that teacher Martin Shaw says that the answers sometimes come from the margins,
Yeah.
especially in times like this.
The answer comes from the margins.
And
Yeah.
so don't just, you know, just the brain thing.
Yeah. Oh, we're done. Sorry, it's 10 after 11. So thanks for coming. And if you want to stay, you can. But if you need to go, go. Okay. I just